by now, I think everyone who plays Dynasty, who's kind of getting into it, they kind of know that the class is pretty good. Like Couch, you're probably trading for 2023 picks, or if you're rebuilding, you probably have like four or five or six first round picks in the 2023 draft because you know it's a good class. A lot of people are telling you that, and you made the move to get those picks, and good for you. But now it's time to figure out, okay, now I have these picks. Who's actually in this class? What's there for me to take? What's available, right? And obviously, I guess the most interesting or most talked about portion of each rookie class would be the quarterbacks, right? Um, I kind of want to talk really quickly about them. Don't want to go into too much detail. There's two of them: C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young. One of them is probably going to be the first overall pick. I have reservations on both, right? For C.J. Stroud, he's not going to give you those rushing yards in fantasy football. He's kind of that pocket passer, okay? And then for the other one, Bryce Young, he's kind of on the small side, like Kyler Murray, undersized at the position. So because of that, I'm kind of thinking, unless you're really desperate for a quarterback, and as you mentioned earlier, Couch, in Superflex, it's hard to get a quarterback. You can't just pick a rookie and then, hopefully it's going to pan out and it's going to work. I mean, if it does, good for you. You check the box. If it doesn't, that's how it goes for most rookie quarterbacks that are selected. So what I'm thinking is, unless you're super desperate or you're in a position where you need a quarterback, I would probably fade the position in the first round in favor of running backs. Because running backs, to me, looks like the strength of the 2023 class. And if you're going to prioritize those early picks, might as well get the best part of the best class, right?
Now, we got a graphic up here. Now, this graphic with these names here on the 2020 to 2022 rookie class, we're kind of going back in time and just evaluating these guys as prospects, right?
Correct. Yeah. So obviously, Jonathan Taylor on Indianapolis. I mean, there's an idea that you have. He's the 1.01 in Dynasty and my fantasy drafts and all that stuff and whatnot. That's cool and all, but we didn't know that was going to happen right away, so to speak. So that's kind of why we have the college logos for you there. So just kind of helps you remember, okay, we're evaluating Jonathan Taylor when he was coming out from Wisconsin. Same thing with DeAndre Swift and Najee Harris. And what you're going to see in front of you is kind of a comparison of where do these running backs fit in compared to the last 3 years of rookies, right? It's easy for me to sit here and tell you, hey, the running backs are really good. This is the strength of the class. And I can start listing off all these cool names and start telling you their scouting reports and everything. But that really has no value to you unless you really know, hey, compared to this or in a fantasy context, what do these guys bring to the table? So the first name to bring up, again, a lot of people know this one for sure, Bichon Robinson. This guy is as advertised. He is as good as everyone says he is. Whoever your favorite scouts are next year, you're going to be watching the television, NFL Network or whatever. And these guys are going to be, absolutely gassing this guy up. They're going to tell you he's the perfect RB prospect. We haven't seen anyone better at the running back position since Saquon Barkley. He can be picked in the top 10 of the draft. You're going to hear all this type of stuff. And yeah, he's that good. He's advertised. He is that guy. He is him.
Who's better prospect, Bijan or Saquon?
I would say Saquon and then Bijan, but we're kind of splitting hairs here. And the only reason why I would say Saquon's a little bit better is because I'm obviously, this from AJ Dillon, who we're going to talk about a little later. I'm a big fan of the legs for a running back. Saquon's got a little bit thicker trunks. So for that reason, I'm going to take Saquon, but it's close. It's close. And obviously, if we're talking startup next year, because of the youth, I think Bijan Robinson might go ahead of Saquon in the starter draft just because, running backs, you need the younger
he
guy.
Will, unless you're a scaredy cat. He most certainly will. When I took Saquon 1.01 in a startup, it sparked a lot of controversy on YouTube, and people just flat out like they thought that was the wrong move, and they thought I should take Zeke, but they were wrong. So.
Yeah, no, I understand their perspective because one's proven, one's not. But at the same time, I mean, you're thinking from the perspective of, look, everyone is saying Saquon Barkley is the most amazing prospect ever at the position. He got picked in the top 5 or whatever it was in the draft. All the signs are pointing up for you to make that move. So I mean, I totally get it. And I feel like once the NFL draft rolls around in April, I think all the signs are going to point to you picking Bijan Robinson quite early in your drafts. I have him ahead of Jonathan Taylor as a prospect because he is clearly far and away superior to Jonathan Taylor. As a prospect, I think the production, Jonathan Taylor may have an edge just because this year Bijan Robinson has been good, not great, while Jonathan Taylor was pretty much stellar and great all 3 years. But again, I mean, this is Bijan. The traits are there. I will say this before I move on to the next guy. If Bijan Robinson is not a top 5 running back, or he's not a, at some point in his career, the 1.01 or 1.02, he's probably going to be a bust, man, honestly. Like, even if he's an RB2, that's not what you're signing up for. If you're going to trade to get him, you got to trade way more than that. So these are high expectations that we're putting on this guy, and I feel like he's going to live up to them. Next guy on the list is Jahmyr Gibbs. He's one of my favorite running backs. I think Mike is going to like him a lot. We were talking about Brian Robinson earlier and how he's, kind of Willis McGahee, like a power back. I mean, that's Jahmyr Gibbs, but he is just on another level. Couch, if I told you, hey, look at running back number 1 and look at running back number 2, and I never told you anything about these guys, you would tell me that Jahmyr Gibbs' tape from the eye test looks better than Bijan Robinson, because that is true in my eye. From my eye, Gibbs looks like the better pure running back in terms of just physicality, vision, all those traits, contact balance that we talk about. He just looks better to me than Bijan Robinson, and he is going to be the second running back taken in this draft class. What I will say is that if Bijan did not exist, Gibbs would be far and away like the top guy in this class. He's really good. He also goes to Alabama. He's a better version of Najee Harris. That's probably a similar comparison I might give him. Maybe Alvin Kamara, because he can catch as well. But that's Jahmyr Gibbs. I think I'm very excited to get him if I'm not able to land Bijan Robinson. I'm in a lot of tanking teams, so I'm expecting an early pick. But if someone beats me to the punch, I am perfectly content with getting Jamir Gibbs. Next 2 guys, Zach Evans, Sean Tucker. I'm going to kind of talk about them in the same kind of, not rather individually, but kind of together. These are like your tier 2 guys, okay?
So just the people that are listening and can't see, you got Bijan Robinson just ahead of Jonathan Taylor and ahead of Swift. And then you got Jahmyr Gibbs, the next rookie prospect. Then under that, you got Najee, J.K. Dobbins, Travis Etienne, and now we're talking about right under Etienne, these 2 prospects for 23.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what I would say is I was tinkering with this because obviously you see Breece Hall right underneath them. I think these guys are both better than Breece Hall, ? If they're not better, they're really close. So I would consider Etienne, Zach Evans, Sean Tucker, Breece Hall, Javonte, kind of all in like this one kind of cluster of a tier. Let's call it a tier 2. And again, let's say you're in a situation where you're not tanking, but you have your 2023 pick. You're not necessarily a great team either, so you're kind of stuck in the middle. Look, man, these running backs, if you told me you can get Breece Hall in the middle of the first round of a rookie draft, that's incredible. You know what I mean? That's absolutely mind-boggling incredible. So I'm predicting that as long as these 2 guys pan out and become, decent, relevant in fantasy football, I think these guys might be the best value at least from the RB position, in the entire 2023 draft. You're telling me I can get Breece Hall / Javonte or Etienne in the middle of a stacked, uber stacked draft class? I'm all in on that. So those are those two guys. And then we go to the last one.
So after Tucker and Evans, they got Hall, then Breece Hall, Javonte, then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, then Cam Akers, then Ken Walker, then A.J. Dillon. And just for the record, that I would never have Cam Akers ahead of Ken Walker. I would have Ken Walker. I was never a huge fan of Cam Akers. I just thought he was overall okay. So Ken Walker definitely one spot ahead of Cam Akers. Ken Walker has a lot more pop, and he was, for some reason, got a bad rep with his pass catching abilities.
Sure. Okay. I can live with that. What is going to be a hard time living with, though, is being stuck with Tank Bixby. I'm talking about him now because he is a very, very, highly touted, that prospect pedigree is very high. It's really good, right? But what I am going to say is every year, and it's happened for at least the last 3-4 years now that I can remember, there's always one running back that, we think a year before they come out is really good. And then by the time Couch does his research and Mike gets his research in, and, all you guys who are not really college fans, but more NFL fans, and then start looking up rookies just, months in advance, you see these names be kind of irrelevant. I'm talking about a guy like Chuba Hubbard. Couch, when you drafted Chuba Hubbard, or when you found out about Chuba Hubbard, he wasn't that great. He was picked in the second round. The expectation is he was going to be the handcuff to Christian McCaffrey. And obviously, we haven't even seen him do that to a great ability. If we drafted him 1 year before, I would have told you that Chuba Hubbard was the guy. Top 3 back, as good as Najee Harris, as good as Etienne. That's just the reality of the situation. And then what happened was he had a back injury and his stock fell. So similarly, we have this guy named Tank Bixby, and he is averaging 2.2 yards per carry. Not good. I'll say that again. He's averaging 2.2 yards per carry, and he looks like crap.
Pro comp Trent Richardson.
Let's go for it.
The same numbers he was averaging like in the Canadian League, Trent Richardson or whatever.
Yeah. So a lot of guys who play Devy leagues, which extension of a dynasty league where you can kind of draft rookies while they're still in college and then you wait for them, they have Tank Bixby and they are trying to get rid of him, or they are holding their breath, crossing their fingers, doing whatever, saying multiple prayers, as we were earlier, that he becomes something. So what I'm going to tell you is, even if you're in the second round and you see Tank Bixby on your board, pass him up. Let the next guy have him. There's other running backs that you can get later. We'll talk about them in more detail at a later time. And there's some wide receivers that are also going to be available that we can get to right now, actually, because that's pretty much the main bulk of the running backs in the first round of 2023.